All right, good afternoon. So I think we can start here with the bad news is we've only gotten a 297 million steps for it to go, but unfortunately it stopped learning anything new from the run. So it seems like what had happened here was that there were a few issues. It had never made it into the Diglett Cave. There was an event here for that, so it never ended up getting the Pokemon Flute, which meant that it could never get into Saffron City. And then, because it hadn't completed any of the major events, basically the run had reset. And so it would start back at the beginning and wouldn't find its way through the process. So 300 million steps in, and we essentially got blocked by badge 5. Now, I've talked with that guy who set up this process, and he had said he'd never seen anything like this, especially considering this was built basically off of one of his more successful runs, where it missed Diglett Cave, and then it never got the Poke Flute, and never did, what was it, the Rocket Hideout. So even though it had made it into those areas, we just never seen it proceed further. So somewhere along the way, it decided to kind of turn back and go back to the beginning of the game, and then eventually it reset the agents. So one of the things that need to be on the lookout for is apparently it resets if it deposits the main your main Pokemon into the PC, which in this case it's Bulbasaur. The reason why it locks it to having Bulbasaur is because it can learn Cut, and it's just in general a very strong Pokemon, but with it not having a bunch of wild encounters, it can't capture another Pokemon, so then it could teach them the Cut. And there's very few along the way that it would even be possible for that. One moment. So it hadn't done all the major cuts in the game. You can see here the caught Pokemon. It's an aggregate of the Pokemon that has seen and evolved. Never made it far enough, so it did make it into Game Corner, which is where the rocket lair is, but it hadn't actually completed it. It did hit the warp tiles for the elevator and stuff like that, but it just did not complete the area before turning back around, which led to issues. And you can see here, it did get quite a bit of the badge rewards. It got some of the HM rewards. Like I said, caught Pokemon average level across the party was about 40. So made solid progress to make it to badge 4, but basically it had been capped out there. So around the 100 million or so step mark was when it had gotten to, sorry, about 75 million is when it had gotten to completing badge 4, but then it just got essentially turned around and reset, and we lost the progress of the run there. So last time, what we were doing while this was running was a few things. We were copying over some of the similar behavior to the main Pokemon Red library that we had. So this is the Puffer version, which is the version that had 300 million steps here, taking some of the nice little features from here and then bringing it over. So one of them was you can specify an area that you do not want events to occur. So we did that to copy over no events happening in Mount Moon for, for the Red Experiments version. So one of the big issues for this one is that it would repeatedly black out at the Mount Moon, because it's the first area in the game where you can just constantly encounter Pokemon every step that you take. Prior to that, it's really only the areas with grass that you will encounter Pokemon. And in this case, what ended up happening was on this version, you get into Mount Moon, it's trying to figure out the path to get through there, but your Pokemon starts to run out of attacks that it can use to continue proceeding through there. So what we'd seen is that version, it would capture about 3 or 4 wild Pokemon. You would have your evolved Bulbasaur or Squirtle, depending on which starter. We tried both. And if we were lucky, it had a Pidgey so that it can complete a lot of battles against Zubat, because the main attack for Zubat is a bug move, which Pidgey has resistance against. And so it can basically train there as it's trying to get through. Eventually what happens, though, is it dies enough times in Mount Moon where it stops going through there. And one of the ways that we had tried to combat that is here in the died count. And I want to see if I had taken it out. Yes. So if it died, I would remove the last 200 items here in the scene coordinates, which would reduce the score or exploration score for that run. And that would reduce it. These are the last 200 coordinate pairs that it encountered. But that would then reduce your score by about 8 points per death. And then that's significant. So it'd be like, well, if I go in there, I'm going to lose a bunch of score. I don't want to have that happen. So taking that out was important. Or I'm considering taking this out so that way it continues proceeding through there and hopefully doesn't get turned away. Although it would be less likely for that to be the case with the battles turned off as well. And then I'm going to take this over to the other screen because there's another thing that they do here, which I think is good, is that it gives it the infinite money, because when you're going to things like Safari Zone and actually purchasing in the Pokemon centers, with the number of deaths that happen across the runs, it actually stops going to the Pokemarts because there's not much there for it to do. So I was looking through for that here as well. So then what was happening here is, okay, so they use the memory values for the player's money, which is stored across 3 different byte sets, and basically gives them $10,000 when that occurs. So if when it checks, if it drops below 10,000, it will essentially get them back up to 10,000. Part of this is because once it gets to the what is that? The Rocket Hideout as well, the store before the Rocket Hideout. There are a couple items to purchase there. I think it's the lemonade and the fresh water. These are needed for access to certain parts of the game. So I think it's you give fresh water to one of the guards along the way to Celadon City, and it opens up a path for you to use the bike path. And then I want to say there's another one later in the game where you need the lemonade, or maybe I have those 2 backwards, but you need those to get certain things. Maybe that was related to the Pokeflute. But those are like key critical items, and if it does not have the money to do so, it won't learn to do those purchases. And they're fairly important to the game, so I was kind of curious if that happened. So I'm thinking of taking that over here. So this is at the step. It's the wild encounters. And then we got reset here. Okay, so it only needs to be set on the money. And then where are the initialed? I think I'm already too far. So come here. If I can just set it, so I'll just do self. Come over to here. So save there, and then this comes back to config. So that should be fine. When we get to those key points, so it will always set it up to the 10,000 amount. So it will have the money it needs to complete any action or any purchase along the way. I want to go back here. So this runs on 24. It's probably better as 16. And then, oh, I want to check here. Agent stats. Huh? Let's see what agent stats is. Wow, okay. So that's useful. Let's go here. One of the things I do want to see is how much it had kept. Because I noticed it using up some of the memory. I wonder if it kept any video of the run, so we can take a look at those. That's just the virtual environment. Oh no, these are the folders for it. Okay. So this is the more recent one. Test. What are these? These are safe states. Gotcha. So it creates a bunch of these. They don't really occupy much space, do they? 30 megabytes is nothing. Yeah, that's nothing. I'm just curious if something was chewing up a hard drive space because I only got 30 left and my stream is stalling. Which usually is not an issue. These are different saved states. And what is this? So that's the output file. Okay. So it doesn't seem like there's a lot here that's chewing up the hard drive. So I'm kind of surprised. I don't know why we're running so. Kick this off. That's the CUDA file. So yeah, I don't know why, but we're showing as almost out of memory. So if I try and kick this off, well, we implemented the infinite money really quickly, but I did want to do the test, but I'm afraid if I run it, it's going to end up like choking out the computer. Can I guess I'll take them. No, that's not good. It's not even loading it. That was the stream. The idea here was that I could improve the output for this callback. At least that was what I was hoping. But we're crashing here again. Hopefully this stays stable. Yeah. All right. Well, hopefully this stabilizes. The idea here was that we can copy more code over, not copy, but repurpose some of the code to improve the output that we're getting as well. It's hard to tell. Where are we? Okay. Well, we're struggling along, but hopefully load for me. All right. So the idea here, there's a lot of information that I think would be useful. But I was trying to see what they do with the agent stats here, because they use the agent stats to write to the log. Here. So if it's saving, it will then make a save state, and it will agents. Stabilize. All right. I'm unable to find it, but maybe this. Let's pick this up for next Tuesday stream. I think one of the struggling to maintain a stable connection just to the stream, but then it seems like I'm nearly out of space on the hard drive, so I need to figure out what exactly we've got going on here. I'm sure this can free up a little bit. of space. But yeah, so I guess to quickly summarize, 300 million steps, and I stopped it right before the stream just because it seemed like the computer was really struggling, and we continue to have some of that struggle here. So 300 million steps, it had stalled out on getting to badge number 5. Realistically, it was even before that. It had not made it through the rocket hideout, and it had not even gone into, there was like Diglett, Tunnel, and Flash to look at here. Yeah, Silphco, all these. And then a couple things, like it had started storing the SS ticket, had never finished, or had got into Rocket Game Corner, but never finished it. So somewhere along the way, it had given up and gone back for that. And then you can see here, HMs 3 and 4 are just completely missing. So it had never made it that far. It never even got the Pokeflute as well. So that way it could get past the Snorlaxes. And so essentially progress had stopped, and then the runs would restart themselves over and over to try and get more progress, but then a very similar thing would happen. So even though it restarts, it remembers what badges and stuff it has. So then it would try and proceed through Victory Road, which was then causing it to crash out along the way there. And you can see here, a lot of them had the bicycle, it had turned, so it had gotten the bike voucher and then turned them into the bicycle. Some of them had purchased the fresh water from the shops right near Rocket Hideout. It had not gotten the soda or the lemonade, but then, where was that again? The Pokeflute here had not happened, and then that meant that it, even after it beat Erica, it stopped gaining progress to actually get into Saffron City. So what I'm going to do here is I'm copying over some of the, I think, keys to more of the success here to kick off this progress, where I want this to run. I want this to run the beginning of the game through on the old version that we had before, to try and let it get more progress in terms of the game. So it was getting stopped at Mount Moon. I think that was a large part because of the number of wild battles there. So I'm going to turn those off to see if it can proceed through there. If it gets to the case where it is then getting to badge 2 pretty regularly, then I will work on trying to potentially remove some of these spaces for here, because I'm guessing what happens is most of it is the first floor of Mount Moon. There's just so much space for it to cover. And then the floor 2 here as well is also, I think, part of the problem, where there's just too many encounters, plus the trainers just make it nearly impossible for it to make it through a number of times. So what I'd seen is it had gone from about 5 to 7 deaths by the time it encountered Brock to somewhere in the 15 to 20 range, and then it starts to give up on trying to get through Mount Moon, because it's explored it's explored basically the whole first floor, but it's no longer getting reward for exploration at that point. The Pokemon really aren't gaining levels anymore. It had done all of the fights on that floor, so there's very little reason for it to continue on down the path. And so it eventually goes, well, since I'm not getting anything here, I'm going to go out and I'm going to try and find other things. So there's random hidden items on the map. There are small fights that it can do in the grass to like level up its Pokemon for a little bit. And then once it starts getting to be too many battles before then, it just stops doing that and then basically hiding in corners. So I want to give this a good shot here. What I'll do is I'll let this run. I'll take it one day at a time, basically. So I will run this this evening once I restart my computer to try and see if we are getting good progress. what I will do is I will load the save state here, which is the one that had actually made it through to Cerulean City, to see if it will make it through the cave, through Mount Moon, now that we have removed the battles inside the cave. And then if that is successful, then tomorrow I have the stream where we're continuing the Big Data Bowl, probably on Saturday. I would do a stream just kind of updating some of the progress here on, are we having success for making it through Mount Moon? If that's the case, then we would try and let it go to continue to do Lieutenant Search. So that's all for today. I'm going to take down the stream, restart my computer, and then I'll kick off the experiment. So for those of you that came, thank you for checking in. Please feel free to leave a comment with anything that you found interesting or anything that you would like to see out of this, and hopefully we'll see more success. So thank you and have a great day.